Right friends, welcome back to lecture. This is 49th week, and what are the highlights? The most important aspect is the historic COP21, that is the Conference of the Parties 21, or otherwise the Paris Climate Conference that started in Paris on November 30. India stated that it will fulfill all its commitments on climate change. At the same time, India along with France launched International Solar Alliance, and China announced South-South climate change cooperation with $3.1 billion. When you come back to the domestic issues, Centre can only decide remission cases when the case falls under central agencies like CBI, rules Supreme Court. Worst floods in Chennai. What went wrong with Chennai? We are going to deliberate in brief. Certain aspects we will discuss next week because of paucity of time, because of this climate conference this week. Then soil health cards will be given in 3 years, says the central government. And in India, around 14.5 crore families are there. That is, farmer community is 14.5 crore strong, and government intends to give soil health cards to all the farmers in 3 years. If you look at issues concerning economy and banking, RBI eased norms for accessing foreign loans under external commercial borrowing based on MS Sahu committee recommendations. Then quarter 2 GDP growth for 2015-16 stands at 7.4%. We are going to discuss whether India is on growth path to 8% or not. Then GST panel suggested 17% to 18% standard rate. And if you look at the miscellaneous events, the plight of capitals of two most populous nations in the world, that is Beijing and Delhi, attracted the world attention because of some wrong reasons, because of heavy vehicular pollution, or you can say smog. These two cities are into news for bad reasons. Then the last event is odd and even number vehicles to ply on alternate days in Delhi as stated by the Chief Minister, and this is going to be implemented from 1st January 2016. Right friends, we are going to discuss events in detail one by one. First and the foremost is about the climate deal. You may ask, what is so important about this climate deal? We have discussed certain things when we were discussing intended nationally determined contributions somewhere during the first week of October about the importance of climate deal, and I would like to be brief in this lecture part, and if you want in detail, please listen to news analysis and features. For this week, we are going to concentrate exclusively on the importance of climate deal. Climate is being polluted because of several emissions from burning of coal, oil, then burning of stubble, then vehicle exhausts. Like that, the entire atmosphere is getting polluted day by day, and the biggest worry is carbon dioxide. Please look into this slide. What will happen? Sun rays will come to the atmosphere, and while they are reaching the earth, some of them will be reflected back, and some of these rays will be absorbed by the atmosphere, and some of these rays will be absorbed by the earth. Not only that, earth will emit infrared radiation. After absorbing sun rays, earth will emit infrared radiation. Infrared radiation is long wavelength or short frequency radiation, that is called infrared radiation. So after absorbing sun rays, this earth will emit less frequency or high wavelength radiation, and this radiation is absorbed by greenhouse gases. The radiation which is emitted by the earth after being absorbed, that means sunlight is absorbed by earth, and part of it will be emitted in the form of infrared radiation, or you can say low frequency radiation or high wavelength radiation, and the basic problem is that this radiation will be absorbed by carbon dioxide and other gases which are known as greenhouse gases. So, the rays of greenhouse gases in the atmosphere will lead to rise in the temperature of Earth. If the temperature rises, what will happen? Because of rise in temperature, icy glaciers will melt, because of which there may be rise in the water levels. Because of rise in sea levels, some countries may be vulnerable, and some countries, people living on the shores may be at risk also. So, the greenhouse gases which are absorbing this solar radiation are to be reduced. Greenhouse gases is predominantly carbon dioxide. If you look into this, these are greenhouse gases, and carbon dioxide is predominant at around 74%, followed by methane and nitrous oxide, but everything is being calculated on carbon dioxide equivalent only. And as precursors to Paris deal, before Paris deal, India announced their intended nationally determined contributions, popularly known as INDCs. Every country, almost 186 countries, announced voluntarily that we are going to do these things to reduce carbon emissions. The main focus is how to reduce carbon emissions, how to reduce burning of coal, how to reduce burning of oil. Alternative is renewable energy. So, India announced that it aims to cut its carbon emissions per unit of GDP by 33 to 35% by 2030 in comparison to 2005 levels, and we have discussed all these things when we discussed current affairs lecture in the first week of October. The main focus is reduce the carbon emissions, reduce burning of coal, reduce burning of oil, that is reduce burning of fossil fuels. Right? With this background, let us look at the fact sheet on climate conference. 195 nations along with the European Union participated, and around 150 heads of government with 40,000 delegates participated. And prior to this, 186 countries submitted their INDCs, and as per the voluntary contributed or voluntary committed targets, it is not possible to reduce the temperature rise to 2 degrees centigrade. It will go up to 3 degrees or 3.7 degrees centigrade. There is a need for reducing further carbon emission targets. And conference aims at ending the stalemate on global warming with the binding agreement. Remaining things I have given here. If you look at the conference started, the main aim is to have binding agreement to limit greenhouse gases. We have already learnt previously, there are two emitters. The top emitters are China and United States of America. They made firm commitment to cut carbon emissions, and French president made the case for progressive tax on carbon, and French president also stated that agreement must be reached on December 11. So, the conference took off on November 30 with the intention that some binding agreement is to be reached by December 11. Right friends, so in view of this, Indian Prime Minister attended COP summit at Paris. And you may have a doubt why it is called COP21, that is Conference of Parties 21. That means this is a conference of parties with regard to United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change was first conceived in the year 1992. Subsequently, under this pact, these conferences are being held from 1995. This is the 21st conference, that's why it is COP21 or Conference of Parties 21. And in view of the summit, the Prime Minister wrote in Financial Times, and his viewpoint I have given 3-4 points here. It would be morally wrong if the developed countries shift the burden of reducing carbon emissions on developing countries. The basic point here, what he wants to convey is, developed countries already developed. They are using lot of energy for air conditioning, for their lavish lifestyle, but in developing countries, millions of people are below poverty line. and there is a moral need to bring them out of poverty, and it requires a lot of energy needs. That's why you should not compare the responsibilities of developed countries and developing countries. That means common but differentiated responsibilities should be the bedrock of collective enterprise. That means you should not keep all the countries on one platform. There should be differentiated responsibilities. The responsibilities of developed countries like United States of America, Germany must be different from developing countries like India, and that is the reason why Prime Minister emphasized on common but differentiated responsibilities. The meaning is common but differentiated responsibilities means all are required to do something, but the responsibilities must be different because of the situation that developed countries already consuming a lot of energy and developing countries have to bring millions of people above the poverty line, right? Then Prime Minister stated that India will fulfill all its responsibilities with regard to climate change as specified under intended nationally determined contributions. India will do whatever is required so as to limit the temperature to 2 degrees centigrade, and the Prime Minister laid emphasis on renewable energy. The Prime Minister categorically stated, we are aiming 175 gigawatt of renewable energy by 2022, and 40% of our energy needs will be met through renewable energy by 2030, right? And here on the sidelines of this summit, the Prime Minister launched International Solar Alliance. He called upon the countries which are situated between Tropic of Cancer and Tropic of Capricorn. This is the region where sunlight falls vertically on the ground. That means the intensity of sunlight is more here. So the Prime Minister launched the International Solar Alliance so as to make it a forum for around 121 countries which are fully or partially situated between this Tropic of Cancer and Tropic of Capricorn. That means the countries, around 121 countries, some newspapers stated 122 countries. So these countries will form as an International Solar Alliance so as to give emphasis for solar energy. This International Solar Alliance was formulated. The Prime Minister launched it along with Francois Hollande of France. And the Prime Minister stated it will function from National Institute of Solar Energy, Gurgaon, and India will manage it for first 5 years by giving some support. Remaining things I have given here. And at the same time, Chinese President launched a South-South climate change cooperation with $3.1 billion or 20 billion yuan, right? So Xi Jinping announced that it will forge South-South climate change cooperation with 20 billion yuan, and he also stated that 10 low carbon industrial parks will be launched, and China will also support 100 mitigation and adaptation projects in developing countries. So from this it is very clear that the countries are very much serious about this climate change conference, and here the basic challenges are: can the developed countries change their lifestyle and cut their emissions? Developed countries are contributing to maximum emissions though the population is less because of their luxurious and lavish lifestyle. Can they come out of that? That is the biggest question. The second one is, there is a mechanism which was established in the year 2010 at the Cancun conference in Mexico, that $100 billion per annum will be contributed to Green Climate Fund from the year 2020 by developed countries, and this will be made available to developing countries. What is the mechanism? How the funds will come and how it will be categorized? How will it be distributed? What is the differentiation between developed and developing countries? The country like Greece, which is already into problems, can it contribute? So there are $1 million questions which are yet to be solved. And third important aspect is, there is a lot of research going on in renewable energy, whether the developed countries will give access to that technology to developing countries without intellectual property rights. Can they make available that technology to developing countries? That is another biggest challenge. So these are the challenges, and let us hope some breakthrough by December 11, and If you want more about this, please listen to news analysis of 49th week as well as 50th week. We are presenting the importance of this climate change conference in two parts for 49th week and 50th week. Please listen to it if you want more details. Right friends, look at the domestic events. Center can only decide remission cases, says Supreme Court, if the case involves CBI or central agencies. What is remission? Remission is reducing the sentence. If somebody is convicted 10 years of imprisonment and if it is reduced to 5 years, that is remission. And this all pertains to Rajiv Gandhi assassination case. And if you go back to the history, Rajiv Gandhi, who was the former Prime Minister of this country, was assassinated on May 21, 1991 in Sri Perumbudur near Chennai in Tamil Nadu, and subsequently 7 people were convicted to life imprisonment, some of them initially death penalty and subsequently commuted to life imprisonment. And one fine morning, Tamil Nadu government decided to release them and wrote to the center. That happened on 19th February 2014. Tamil Nadu government decided to release them and return to the center. And the central government immediately referred the matter to Supreme Court. And now Supreme Court categorically stated that when the case is investigated by Central Bureau of Investigation or central agencies, the decision is to be taken by central government, not the state governments in remission cases. When the case is investigated by central agencies, the power lies with the center. Why Tamil Nadu government referred the matter to center? Under Criminal Procedure Code 435(1), state government can refer the matter to central government for consultation. But now the Supreme Court said that consultation means that should be concurrence. Now Supreme Court categorically stated that under Article 435(1) of Criminal Procedure Code, consultation should be understood as concurrence when the case involves central investigative agencies. So this is the judgment given by Supreme Court, and it is clearly evident from this, state government has got no power to release the convicts when the case is dealt by Central Bureau of Investigation. And the Supreme Court also made certain categorical statements that Rajiv Gandhi killers don't even deserve a ray of hope that they will be released one day. The bench also upheld the constitutionality of special sentences. Right? So this is about Rajiv Gandhi assassination case. Right friends, Mumbai in 2005 and Chennai in 2015. What went wrong with Indian cities? And with regard to the floods in Chennai, we are going to deliberate some more issues in lecture part of 50th week because of paucity of time this week. But what went wrong in general with Indian cities? Though Chennai witnessed the highest rainfall in the century, which is not a disputable fact, but still what ails Indian cities? I have listed out 6 points. One is encroachment or occupation of natural waterways. These natural waterways are being occupied because of encroachments. Second important point is poor civic infrastructure, and our mega cities developed in haphazard way without giving any cognizance to hydrological data. What will be the maximum outflow when heavy rainfall occurs without giving any cognizance to hydrological data? Our cities developed. Third important point is unauthorized structures comes up first, then they are regularized subsequently by paying some penalty. Fourth important point is residential townships came upon ponds and lake beds, and in fact water bodies in Chennai shrank from 150 to 127. Other important aspect is stormwater drains are improperly planned and they never work in totality, and most of the times they work in isolation. Then civic departments normally work in isolation. A coordinated effort by all the wings is very rare thing. So these are the problems associated with Indian cities. So let us plan for livable cities. Let us leave smart cities for the time being, because first making Indian cities livable should be the foremost task for any government. Another important event is soil health cards. Government of India is going to give soil health cards to all the farmers. There are around 14.5 crore farmers in this country, and government wants to give soil health cards to all these farmers. Incidentally, I would like to tell you a few more issues. That World Soil Day was observed on 5th December, International Union of Soil Sciences, and this first proposed this in 2012, and in the year 2013, United Nations 68th General Assembly declared December 5 as World Soil Day, and this year's theme is Soils, a Solid Ground for Life, and at the same time 2015 is also designated as International Year of Soils. Keeping this historical perspective in background, now the central government decided to give soil health cards to all the farmers within 3 years. And what is the purpose of soil health card? It is basically with a view to improve the health of the soil, and at the same time it provides guidance to the farmers on soil related issues. Right? Initially, in February itself, Government of India launched soil health card scheme in Suratgarh in Rajasthan. Now it wants to give soil health cards to all the farmers within next 3 years. Right friends, let us look at issues pertaining to economy and banking. Right friends, when you look at the events pertaining to economy, Reserve Bank of India eased norms for external commercial borrowing. What is the meaning of external commercial borrowing? External commercial borrowing is borrowing by Indian companies from foreign land. Borrowing by Indian companies. Why do they borrow from foreign land? Because of less interest rates, they go to foreign land and borrow. That is known as external commercial borrowing. Subject to certain limits, they can borrow from abroad, and they can borrow from banks or financial institutions abroad. And here one important point I would like to tell you is, this is a part of India's external debt. Though the companies are borrowing from abroad, this is a part of India's external debt. And another important point is, this is the maximum component of India's external debt. Out of the total external debt of the country, this is the maximum component, usually around 30% or 25% of the total external debt. And if someone asks which constitutes maximum at present in the total external debt of the country, that is external commercial borrowing. Now, based on MS Sahu committee recommendations, Reserve Bank of India liberalized certain rules. Now the companies can raise money from foreign regulated financial institutions like foreign pension funds, foreign insurance funds, and sovereign wealth funds. What is meant by sovereign wealth fund? Sovereign wealth fund is the fund maintained by cash surplus countries or fiscal surplus countries. If you look at India, we are always under fiscal deficit. Our expenditure is more than revenue. But if you look at some countries like Norway, their expenditure is less and income is more, then they will maintain sovereign wealth funds. So now the companies can access money from these type of institutions also, and for small value external commercial borrowings, the limit was also raised to $50 million. Another important aspect is, companies can also raise the external commercial borrowings up to a time period of 10 years duration. And please remember, this external commercial borrowing is not allowed for stock market operations, for real estate operations, for purchase of land. These things are very important. Look at the next one. Quarter 2 GDP growth stands at 7.4%. In this financial year, in quarter 1, India has grown at 7%. And now for quarter 2 is from July to September. In quarter 2, the growth is 7.4%. And during this period, China has grown by around 6.9%. And if you look at emerging markets like Brazil and Russia, they contracted during this period. So India is one bright spot among the emerging economies if you look at the growth. But a pertinent question is whether this will lead to 8% growth. There are some positives, there are some negatives. Some critics say that the growth is not matching with the ground realities. If you analyze GDP growth rate for Q2 at 7.4% and manufacturing has grown by 9.3%. Another important aspect is wholesale price index is in the negative territory for 13 months and consumer price index is at around 5%. And slight improvement in public investment. What is meant by public investment? Public investment is the investment by the government. Now there is little pickup in the public investment for road sector and there are reforms in FDI. Recently government announced several reforms for foreign direct investment with a view to improve ease of doing business index. These are the positives, but there are several negatives. Manufacturing Purchasing Managers Index. What is Purchasing Managers Index? Purchasing Managers Index looks at private sector companies. Certain indices are looked at private sector companies so as to arrive at whether the private sector companies are on the growth path or on the contraction path. If it is more than 50, it shows the growth path, but here it is 50.3, just above 50. It fell to 25-month low of 50.3. Second important aspect is fall in global commodity prices. Third one is poor state of global economy and fall in exports for 12 consecutive months. Exports are falling for the past 12 months. Then second, successive deficient monsoon. Then another important aspect is credit offtake from banking system not up to the mark. There is not much demand for credit from the banking system. Then fear of United States Fed hiking interest rates. So these are the aspects which have to be weighed before looking at Indian growth rate. But many critics say that GDP growth is not really reflecting at ground level. Right friends, look at the next event. GST panel headed by Chief Economic Advisor Arvind Subramanian reported that 17% to 18% should be the standard rate for GST. What is GST? GST is Goods and Services Tax. It is proposed to replace all the indirect taxes with the unified single tax regime. All the indirect taxes will be replaced by singular tax, that is the GST. Because of implementation of this GST, various taxes will go away, because of which there will be ease in doing business, and at the same time GDP is expected to grow at around 1.5% to 2% immediately because of introduction of GST. But this GST bill is not seeing the light of the day because of paralysis of the parliament in National Herald case in recent times. And this panel suggested that standard rate of 17% to 18%, and it also suggested eliminating taxes for interstate trade. And most important aspect is, if the government chooses different rates, some of the goods can be taxed at 12% and demerit goods. What is the demerit goods? Demerit goods are harmful to the health, like alcohol and tobacco. These can be taxed at 40%. That means the goods which are harmful to the health can be taxed at higher rate of 40%. That is popularly known as the sin tax also. So this GST panel gave certain recommendations. Let us see how the government will respond, and there is no likelihood of GST bill to see the light of the day in this winter session of Parliament, and we have to wait for some more time for this GST bill to have breakthrough. Look at the miscellaneous events. Look at the plight of two capitals, of two most populous nations. One is Beijing, the particulate matter 2.5. What is PM 2.5? PM 2.5 is the level of pollution particles of size less than 2.5 microns. 2.5 microns. Micron means 10 power minus 6 meter, right? So, the fine particles less than 2.5 micron in size are harmful to the health because they go deep into the lungs. Not only that, they go deep into the bloodstream. Because of that, these particles of less than 2.5 micron size are more dangerous to the health. And the WHO recommended level is just 25 micrograms per cubic meter. The safety levels recommended for PM 2.5 particles are 25 micrograms per cubic meter, but in Beijing, these particles touched 634 micrograms per cubic meter. 634 micrograms per cubic meter, and red alert was imposed in Beijing, and it ordered closure of 2100 highly polluted businesses. Initially, orange alert was given and subsequently raised to red alert. Primary and middle schools were advised to stop outdoor activities. And this situation arose because of several reasons like more coal burning, severe vehicle pollution, more humidity, and lack of wind. These contribute to the rise of this PM 2.5 particles, and please don't forget, PM 2.5 particles are most dangerous to health. If you look at the plight of our capital, it crossed 400, and in our country there is no red alert or orange alert system, and this situation arose because of high vehicular pollution, burning of stubble in adjacent Punjab, Haryana regions, then lack of wind. These are all the reasons for increased levels of this particulate matter 2.5, and this is the plight of these two capitals of world's most populous nations. Look at the last one. Delhi government stated that odd and even number vehicles to ply on alternate days in Delhi. This led to a lot of intense debate across the country, and finally Arvind Kejriwal said that it will be on experimental basis, which will be implemented from January 1, and he also stated that they will close Badarpur Thermal Power Station, and at the same time they also advised NGT, National Green Tribunal, to close the Dadri Power Project, which is very close to Delhi, but it falls in the state of Uttar Pradesh. At the same time, the Chief Minister also stated that they will raise green cover and will undertake vacuum cleaning of roads from 1st April 2016. Delhi High Court compared the quality of air in Delhi to a gas chamber. This is alarming situation in Delhi and Beijing, and everyone should take care of their health. And not only in Delhi, in several North Indian cities, the situation is the same because of winter season and fog. So, please take care of your health. That is the final word of this week's lecture. Have a nice day. Thank you.